You're about to see the exact moment one woman broke the silence and left Karoline Leavitt absolutely speechless on live television. This wasn't scripted, this wasn't filtered, and it sure wasn't expected. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett looked straight into the camera and exposed something no one in the room was ready to hear, something that shook the very foundation of Trump's donor network and Melania's carefully guarded image. For 17 full minutes, everything felt like typical political theater, until Jasmine opened a notebook and changed the conversation forever. What followed wasn't just a viral moment, it was a reckoning. Karoline tried to recover, but the look on her face said it all. She didn't have an answer. And across the country, millions of Americans, especially those who've been lied to, misled, and silenced, finally saw someone speak the truth with calm, fearless clarity. If you believe in accountability, if you think truth should never bow to power, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Was Jasmine right to say it live, or did she go too far? It began like any other broadcast. Just another sunny Thursday morning in Sacramento. The studio lights were hot, the backdrop immaculate, and the panelists perfectly polished. Viewers tuning in from across the country, many sipping their first coffee of the day, expected the usual fare, a back-and-forth spar between political figures, followed by polite nods and party-line defenses. But this time, something was different. You could feel it. And for those who remember what live TV felt like before everything got so rehearsed, so scripted, so safe, this was a return to truth, the kind of truth that doesn't knock. It just walks in. Karoline Leavitt, crisp in a cream blazer, sat poised on the right side of the screen. A name already etched into the conservative base as a rising star, the youngest White House press secretary in history. Composed, confident, controlled, at least until Jasmine Crockett stepped into frame. Jasmine didn't bring her usual team. No assistants, no comms director, no buzzing aides whispering through Bluetooth earpieces. Just a black notebook under her arm and a look in her eyes that said, "Today, something needs to be said." The green room had buzzed earlier with its usual chatter, staffers comparing polls, interns laughing nervously, producers whispering cues, but Jasmine had been silent. She'd spent the last hour flipping through those worn pages, tracing underlines and circled names with the tip of her finger, the same way someone might touch an old scar, a reminder, a decision already made. 3 nights before, in the stillness of her Washington, D.C. office, long after staff had gone home and the Capitol lights dimmed, that very notebook had been handed to her. Not mailed, not emailed, handed, no name, no pleasantries. Just a manila folder, a flash of credentials, and a quiet warning. You didn't get this from me. Inside, pages that couldn't be denied. Records, transfer logs, guest lists, donation trails. Names that had once been whispered in security briefings now screamed in black ink. And in the center of it all, a date, April 23rd, 2022, the night of the Mar-a-Lago Gala. Melania Trump had hosted that evening. The pictures were everywhere back then. Champagne, gold table runners, designer gowns. But the guest list? That had always remained vague. Until now, 2 men, one from Macau, one from Beijing, neither American, one under quiet investigation in the EU for financial laundering through luxury art auctions, both present, both unvetted, and both connected to an LLC called Sable Bay Consulting. By the time Jasmine reached the studio that morning, her decision was made. She wouldn't wait for the right moment. She wouldn't test the waters with her team. She wouldn't even ask for approval, because silence has a cost. As the countdown began, 5, 4, 3, 2, the director's voice echoed in their earpieces. The host, Barry Klein, smiled into the camera. Welcome back to Morning State. I'm your host, Barry Klein. Today, we're joined by 2 strong voices from opposite sides of the aisle, Karoline Leavitt and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Karoline opened with polish. She spoke about spending bills, border policy, the rise of crime in liberal cities. It was familiar ground, rehearsed lines, practiced gestures, the kind of stuff that clips easily into 15-second sound bites. Jasmine listened, calm, still. And when Barry passed her the mic, she didn't look at her notes. She didn't look at Karoline. She looked straight at the camera. "Karoline," she began, her voice calm, clear, deliberate. "You're great at talking about spending, unless we're talking about private money being laundered through political galas." Silence. Not the awkward kind, the kind that pulls people toward their TVs, that pulls you in, that makes a seasoned camera operator slowly zoom in because instinct knows something's coming. Karoline blinked. Once, twice. "Excuse me." Barry shifted in his chair. "Congresswoman, can you clarify that?" Jasmine nodded, never breaking eye contact with the camera. "I'm talking about the 2022 Mar-a-Lago fundraiser, the one hosted by Melania Trump. The one that accepted nearly $500,000 from a shell company tied to a Chinese holding group called Sable Bay Consulting." The words hit like a courtroom verdict. The control room froze. The producers stopped whispering. Barry's stack of talking points suddenly looked like ash. Karoline's voice tightened. "That's a reckless accusation." Jasmine leaned forward slightly, her tone unshaken. "Is it reckless if I have documentation signed by a legal aid connected to your campaign, authorizing acceptance of those funds, or just inconvenient?" And with that, the temperature dropped. Viewers across America leaned in. Older voters, the ones who remembered Watergate, who remembered Iran-Contra, who remembered what truth used to look like, they were watching closely now. Because this wasn't about red versus blue anymore. This was about power being cracked open on national TV. This was about someone finally asking what everyone else was too afraid to say. Jasmine didn't need to shout. Her calm was more damning than any rage. Her quiet, focused delivery spoke volumes. Karoline, once the confident starlet of conservative TV, looked lost, not defeated, but caught. The kind of caught that no team of aides could spin away. The kind of caught that Twitter would freeze frame, dissect, and turn into the meme of the month. And she knew it. But Jasmine wasn't done. She dropped names, dates, transaction codes, circled back to Karoline's press secretary, noting internal emails from 2 months ago warning to delete any reference to the gala. Barry tried to pivot. "Let's stay focused on campaign finance more broadly." Jasmine cut in, sharp but controlled. "This is campaign finance. This is the part no one wants to talk about." DL. By the time the first commercial break finally came, millions of Americans had already clipped it, uploaded it, shared it, debated it. But what they didn't know was that this was only the beginning. Because behind Jasmine's calm delivery was a folder, and in that folder was more than just a scandal. It was a blueprint, a map of how power protects itself. And she wasn't going to stop until someone followed it. The first few seconds after Jasmine's words settled were the kind of seconds that hang in the air like smoke. Not loud, not chaotic, but suffocating. The silence wrapped the studio like a velvet curtain, dropped mid-performance, and in homes across America, from quiet farm towns in Nebraska to small retirement condos in Florida, viewers stopped what they were doing. Coffee mugs froze mid-air. Newsrooms turned their monitors up. This wasn't a debate anymore. This was a political earthquake, and they had front-row seats. Barry Klein, ever the seasoned host, cleared his throat, trying to regain control. His voice cracked slightly, just enough to betray the moment. "Congresswoman Crockett," he said, "you've made a significant claim. Can you clarify exactly what you mean by foreign money?" Jasmine didn't flinch. She'd been waiting for that prompt. "I mean that on April 23, 2022, she began, a fundraiser held at Mar-a-Lago accepted $485,000 from an LLC registered under the name Sable Bay Consulting. That LLC, according to international compliance documents, was established in Macau, China. 2 of its executive board members were present at the event. Neither are U.S. citizens. One of them, Mr. Liang Wei, is under investigation by Interpol for transnational financial laundering, and both of their names are on the gala guest list." Inchea. Karoline inhaled sharply, her face still camera-ready, but her fingers betraying her, tightening around the pen she hadn't touched until now. "Where did you get this information?" she asked, her voice deliberately low. Jasmine calmly flipped open her black notebook. "It was flagged by your own communications team in an internal memo 2 months ago, urging your staff to delete any social references to the gala or its donor list." The air became electric. In the control room, a producer whispered, "Oh my God." Barry's eyes darted to the earpiece as a stage manager frantically mouthed something about going to commercial, but he didn't say the word, because he knew you don't cut away from history in the making. Karoline leaned forward now, fighting to take the reins. "Jasmine, this is irresponsible. You're painting innocent people as criminals based on unverifiable." "Do you deny the event took place?" Jasmine asked. Karoline paused. "Do you deny the names on the guest list?" Silence. "Do you deny your communications director sent the memo?" Karoline didn't answer, and that was the moment. The exact moment it shifted from debate to something deeper, something heavier. Millions of viewers, many of them older Americans who had spent years watching politicians dodge and spin, saw it with clear eyes. A reckoning. Jasmine's voice softened. "This isn't about Trump, or even Melania. This is about how silence lets power get away with things the rest of us would be jailed for." The live stream chat exploded. Did she just say that? She's got receipts. Karoline is spiraling. Truth hits hard. Across Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, even retirement-focused forums like Senior Liberty, the clip had already been uploaded. Dozens of versions, different angles, slowed down, captioned. So Crockett exposes Gala was trending within minutes. Karoline tried again. "None of this is confirmed by any federal body. These claims were independently verified," Jasmine interrupted, "by two legal analysts, one of whom worked under your former White House press secretary. You know him. You quoted him in your memoir." The pen in Karoline's hand rolled from her grip and hit the desk. Soft, but everyone heard it. Barry leaned in, voice careful. "Congresswoman Crockett, do you have those documents with you?" Jasmine closed her notebook. "No, I didn't come to wave paper. I came to say out loud what too many of us already know and refuse to acknowledge." Then she turned to Karoline. "You built your brand on being fearless, on saying things others won't. But when truth knocks on your door, you lock it." Karoline looked stunned and quiet. Her mouth opened to respond, but no words came. Her brow furrowed. She looked to Barry, then down, then off camera. Her press team, likely watching from a nearby studio monitor, was probably scrambling. And just like that, the moment was etched in political memory. A freeze frame would later circulate online. Karoline's eyes wide, lips parted, visibly blindsided. The caption? "When you realize she did her homework." Barry exhaled. "Well," he said softly, "I think we'll need to take a quick break." The screen faded to commercial, but no one watching left their seat. Backstage, producers were stunned. Staffers blinked at one another. And Jasmine? She stood, handed her mic to the intern, and walked calmly to the green room. No smirk, no celebration, just a deep breath. Outside the studio, things moved fast. Commentators lined up, emails flooded inboxes, legal departments started calls. But inside millions of American homes, especially those where trust in the system had been long eroded, there was something else, a flicker of hope. Not because Jasmine had taken down Karoline, but because someone, finally, had stood up on live television and refused to flinch. And that, for many watching, felt like the first real thing they'd seen on television in years, 3 nights earlier, Washington, D.C. The halls of the Rayburn House office building were quiet. It was almost 11 p.m., but Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's light was still on. Her jacket hung off the back of her chair, her sleeves rolled to the elbows. The Capitol dome glowed in the distance beyond her window, a beacon and a burden. She hadn't moved in over an hour. Not really. Her eyes were locked on a folder in front of her. Its contents spread like breadcrumbs across her desk. Yellow legal paper, redacted financial reports, internal memos with highlighted phrases like foreign linkage risk and sensitive optics. And then there was the envelope. No return address, no signature, just a soft crease at the corner, as if someone had held it too tightly before letting it go. That man, tall, gray-haired, eyes like winter, had shown up in the hallway just as she was leaving for the night. "You didn't get this from me," he'd said, sliding it into her hands like passing a note across church pews. No explanation. Just a clipboard, credentials she didn't need to verify, and one chilling sentence. "If you don't say it, No one will. The folder held more than evidence. It held a choice. Kendra, her chief of staff, had called as Jasmine was laying the papers out on her desk. "You still in the office?" Jasmine kept her voice low. "Yeah." "Long day?" Jasmine paused. Then, something came up. A silence stretched between them. Kendra always knew. "Is this about that Mar-a-Lago thing?" she finally asked. "The one we said we weren't going to touch?" Jasmine ran a thumb across the top page. A wire transfer from a Nevada-based rug wholesaler, $215,000. No business license, no staff, no inventory. "Yeah," Jasmine said softly. "It's bigger than we thought." Kendra let out a sharp breath. "You planning to say something?" Jasmine hesitated. Not because she wasn't sure, but because once you speak truth on national TV, you don't get to unspeak it. "I'm on that panel Thursday," she said, "with Karoline." "Oh no, I might say something." "Jazz," Kendra sounded nervous. "You say something like this out loud, it's going to land like a bomb. This isn't poking the bear. This is dragging it into daylight." "I know. You sure?" Jasmine's eyes scanned a typed note on Trump letterhead, dated a week before the gala. A legal aid's signature. A clause authorizing foreign attendees for a philanthropic exchange event. "They think people like me won't say it," Jasmine said, "that we're too afraid to break the choreography." "You really going to do this?" "I've had enough of pretending." She hung up, and for the next 2 days, she said nothing. To her staff, to her comms director, not even to her family. Because she knew that if she let even one person weigh in, they might talk her out of it. Instead, she memorized. She traced the donation timelines like a map. One LLC in Delaware, another in South Dakota, a juice company in Sarasota that hadn't filed taxes since 2014, all routing funds through the same shell funnel, Sable Bay Consulting. She barely slept, just stared at the documents, reading and rereading until they burned behind her eyelids. By Wednesday evening, she didn't need the papers anymore. She'd absorbed them. They were inside her now. Thursday morning, Sacramento. The sun rose without ceremony. Local traffic buzzed. Pigeons gathered near the loading docks. Jasmine stepped out of her car wearing a navy blazer and carrying the black notebook. No entourage, no makeup artist. Just her. Inside the studio, Karoline Leavitt arrived with a full team. Hair, wardrobe, comms, aides offering last-minute talking points. A buzz in the room. Jasmine watched it all quietly from her seat in the green room. She sipped from a paper cup of coffee she wouldn't finish. One of the panel producers walked over. "Hey, Jasmine, just a heads up. Karoline's going hard on campaign finance. We're told she's got a segment on wasteful government spending." Jasmine nodded. "Good to know." "You want to hit healthcare early?" Jasmine closed her notebook. "No." The floor manager gave them their 1-minute call. Karoline adjusted her mic. Jasmine set her notebook down beside her. Barry gave his usual pre-show reminder. "Ladies, keep it civil. Pretend to be friends. Smile for the viewers." Jasmine didn't smile. She stared into the middle distance, somewhere beyond the teleprompter. Her hands were steady. Her voice would be too. But her heart was loud, not out of fear, but because she knew this moment would not come again. Back in D.C., 1,000 miles away, Kendra sat at her desk, watching the live stream. Her phone already buzzing. People sensed it. Something was coming. And when Jasmine leaned into the mic, paused and said, "Karoline, you're great at talking about spending," Kendra whispered out loud to no one, "Oh my God, she's doing it." Because Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch, and she didn't blink. Because what she knew, the names, the wire trails, the rubber-stamped approvals, they were no longer just files in a folder. They were fire. And she had decided to speak. The segment was over. But the story had just begun. Jasmine Crockett walked out of the studio in silence, the echoes of her own words still humming in the ears of producers, camera operators, and even Barry Klein himself. She didn't take the back exit. She didn't glance over her shoulder. She just walked. Her black notebook clutched to her side like a shield. Outside, a black sedan idled at the curb. Her driver didn't ask questions, just opened the door, nodded, and let her disappear inside. Back inside the studio, the energy was thick. Like a storm had just passed through, but the lightning hadn't stopped. Staffers stared at monitors in disbelief. Some replayed the final 5 minutes. Others just stood, hands over mouths. Claire, the lead panel producer, hadn't moved from her station. She was watching the segment for the 3rd time. No headset, no commands, just watching. She didn't even raise her voice, Claire muttered. Next to her, Barry leaned on the console, shaking his head. She didn't need to. By the time Jasmine was halfway back to her hotel, your Crockett Exposes Gala was trending in 14 cities. Clips flooded X. One still image in particular, Karoline, mouth slightly open, hand halfway raised, eyes blinking hard. The caption, "When you realize she brought receipts and you brought spin." Another showed Jasmine mid-sentence, calm, steady, surgical. Not yelling, not grandstanding, just truth. TikTok flooded with side-by-side analysis. Podcasters paused their regularly scheduled content. Even conservative commentators were split down the middle, some calling it a smear, others admitting she wasn't wrong. Back in Arlington, Karoline Leavitt's office descended into chaos. The lights were still on at 9 p.m. Her senior aides were locked in the conference room, scrolling Twitter, scrubbing talking points, calling donors. Phones rang off the hook. In one corner, Seth, her campaign manager, slammed a folder onto the table. "Who flagged this months ago? Why wasn't it handled?" Her press aide, Liv, spoke through gritted teeth. "We flagged it. Legal said to ignore it." Karoline sat at the end of the table, stone still. Her screen showed one of the trending clips. Jasmine, her voice clear. "Silence has a cost." Karoline's fingers gripped the edge of the chair. Across the country, phones buzzed. At a church hall in Texas, a retired schoolteacher named Helen rewound the clip 3 times. "That girl didn't flinch," she whispered to her husband. "She looked them in the eye and told the truth." In a veterans center in Ohio, 5 older men huddled around a laptop. One of them said, "I don't care what party she is. That took guts." In Tucson, Arizona, freelance journalist Hector Padilla sat in a dim, co-working space, eyes glued to the live stream replay. He'd heard the name Sable Bay Consulting once before, in a whistleblower folder from an old contact in compliance banking. He dug into his files. There it was, a single page labeled Unflagged Donations Q2 2022. He cross-referenced it against Jasmine's claims, a match, then another, 12 wire transfers, each just under reporting thresholds, all within days of known Mar-a-Lago events. And one more thing, a shell nonprofit in Utah. No staff, no listed programs, but $60,000 rooted from the same Chinese holding group. Hector picked up the phone. "Put me in touch with someone who worked events at Mar-a-Lago in April 2022. I'm not playing anymore." Back in her hotel room, Jasmine finally exhaled. The black notebook lay on the nightstand. Her phone buzzed every few seconds. Interviews, requests, hate, praise, all of it. She didn't answer any of them. Instead, she sat by the window. The city lights blurred in the glass. She thought of her father, who always told her, "Courage doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like standing your ground without saying a word." Her phone buzzed again, a voicemail from her mother. "You did good, baby. I'm proud. But please, be careful." 4 days passed. No public appearances, no podcast tapings, no tweets. Her team panicked. Donors whispered, supporters speculated. Then, on Tuesday morning, she called a staff meeting. 5 senior aides packed into the room. Karoline walked in, gray sweater, no makeup. She didn't sit. "I'm going to speak publicly today," she said. Seth objected. "If you say anything, you validate the claims." Karoline cut him off. "I defended something I didn't understand, and that's on me." Her voice didn't tremble. It was calm, like she'd made peace with something. 3:00 p.m., no major outlets, just local reporters. Some indie journalists. A quiet setup, no podium, just a mic. Karoline stepped forward. Last week, during a live broadcast, claims were made about a fundraiser in 2022 that caught many people off guard. myself included. She looked straight at the cameras. I wasn't at that event. I wasn't part of the planning, but I defended it without knowing the full truth. I shouldn't have. She didn't shift blame. She didn't spin. I've learned a lot in the past few days about silence, about what we pretend not to see. That ends today. Then she walked off. Reporters scrambled. Questions flew, but she was gone. That night, Jasmine sat with Kendra in the living room. The clip played. Kendra raised an eyebrow. You think she's being sincere? Jasmine didn't answer right away. I don't know, she said finally, but I think she realized this isn't just about politics. A month had passed since Jasmine dropped the truth, but the ripple hadn't faded. It had evolved. In Fresno, California, Jasmine stood behind a folding podium in a modest town hall. No flashing cameras, no velvet ropes, just metal chairs, fluorescent lights, and 60 everyday Americans who came not for spectacle, but for clarity. She didn't bring a slideshow, didn't even bring her team, just a worn notebook and a voice the nation had come to recognize. Most of the time, Jasmine began, truth doesn't show up with drum rolls. It comes in manila folders, handed to you by someone who doesn't want to be seen. The room was still. She walked them through the story, not with drama, but with reverence. How the donation trail was built to evade flags. How good people inside the system tried to raise alarms and were ignored. How a single gala became the epicenter of something much darker. An older woman in the front row, hair pulled back in a bun, eyes watery, whispered aloud, "They always think we won't notice." Jasmine looked down, "And they count on our silence." That was the moment the shift began. At first, nothing dramatic happened. But then, two of the Shell nonprofits quietly dissolved. A low-level event coordinator at Mar-a-Lago submitted her resignation. An obscure finance firm in Delaware took down its website, which had listed no services, no clients, just a P.O. box. And in Congress, something unexpected occurred. Karoline Leavitt co-sponsored a bipartisan amendment, one that gave the FEC new tools to investigate campaign contributions linked to foreign-owned LLCs. She didn't make a speech, didn't hold a press conference. But, Jasmine noticed, from across the chamber, their eyes met. No nod, no smile, just the brief acknowledgement of a battlefield shared. In a church basement in St. Louis, a group of retired veterans began organizing a local watchdog group. In Kansas, a high school civics teacher rewrote her curriculum to include a week-long unit on political finance transparency. In Birmingham, Alabama, an 81-year-old woman sent Jasmine a handwritten letter. I lived through Nixon, through Watergate, through the scandals that came with silent men and confident lies. You, my dear, you reminded us that truth has a place on our screens again. It had no return address. 3 months after the segment, Karoline returned to public speaking. Her tone was different. Gone was the sharpness, the media polish. Instead, she talked about lessons learned, about the pressure to always be on, about the damage of defending something she hadn't vetted for herself. And though not all her followers agreed with her new tone, others, especially independents and older viewers who valued humility, began to take notice. She was no longer just a rising star. She was a woman who had been hit by truth and kept walking. Back in D.C., Jasmine kept the folder. She didn't frame it, didn't lock it away. She tucked it between 2 books, the Federalist Papers and a childhood photo of her and her sister on a church swing. Kendra walked into the office one morning holding a stack of mail. Another envelope from Ohio, she said, setting it down, and a postcard from someone named Henry, who wants to tell you about corruption in Michigan. Jasmine smiled. Good, she said. Let them know I'm listening. The final echo. Months later, a reporter asked Jasmine during a town hall, what was the moment you knew you had to say it out loud? She paused. When I looked at that folder and realized every single person who had touched those pages had chosen silence, and if I joined them, then I was no better than the lie. She let the words breathe. The cost of silence is heavy, but the weight of truth, that's what keeps your spine straight. The room rose in applause. Truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks in quietly through the calm voice of a congresswoman holding a notebook. Sometimes it shakes the room, Sometimes it changes the law. And sometimes it simply reminds people that courage still exists. So if this story moved you, if it made you believe again that truth belongs in public, that silence protects the wrong people, and that ordinary Americans can still demand better, then like this video. Leave a comment, share it, because truth needs witnesses, and silence should never win.